Alright, we're going to do another tomato review today, and it's going to be on this tomato right here, and this is called the Cereza Amarillo tomato, and it's a cherry tomato, and I don't know much about it offhand, like the country of origin and all that. There's not much information on a lot of the tomatoes I'm growing this year. There's just basic information, just country of origin, maybe if you're lucky you'll get the creator to it. And that's really about it. Not too much info on a lot of the varieties that I'm growing. So, like I said, I will put the information in the description or on my website, and you can look it up from there. And whatever I can scrub, I will put in that description. So this tomato here is a Amarillo type tomato, meaning yellow or amber in color. And we'll give you a better look at it under the lighting I have here from Sansi Lighting. Just so you know that, I'm using Sansi Lighting. So that's what it looks like. It's a golden cherry. Okay. It's an average sized cherry tomato. The size is about the same. And you can see it gets like an orange color, but they do turn yellow and stay yellow for a while. But when they really fully ripen, again, these tomatoes have been sitting out for probably a week, maybe a week and a half. And they're really ripening. You can almost see some translucentness onto the skin. If you look really close, I can't come too close, it'll blur out. Let's see here. You can see a little bit of translucentness in there. And so they really start to become translucent when they really start ripening. So these are probably going to be really sweet. And I'll show you the inside. Alright, that's what it looks inside. Double chamber. And let's do a bricks test on it. And then we could get into the taste test part of it. So there's your bricks. Slap it shut. Slap it dappy. Okay, it's 600 bricks. Not bad. It's above 5. Anything below 5 makes me start to wonder if it's even going to be edible. You know, for small tomatoes anyway. For larger tomatoes, you're not going to really get that much sweetness in them. And anything above 5 for larger tomatoes, it usually means it's really sweet. But for these cherry tomatoes, you want to usually be between 7 and 8. So I'm under the impression it's not going to be too sweet. But again, this could have one of those amazing flavors that you really don't want the sweetness, to tell you the truth. So let's grab one of these and give that a go. Okay, just like the indicator says, it's not exactly very sweet. We'll cut open another one. It should have sweetened up by now. Usually when you let your tomatoes sit out for a week or so and you really let them ripen up, that sweetness, all the starches by then should be converted over to sugars, and you really should get a nice sweet taste. I'm not getting that big of a sweet taste out of it. Not too impressed with the flavor either. Let's give that a go. Okay, that one's a little better. Now, if you pick these tomatoes when they're in their yellow stage, because I have eaten 1 or 2 of these already, and they're in the yellow stage, the flavor of the tomatoes, it's going to be tangier, but the flavor of the tomato is very pronounced when they're in that yellow stage. Once they fully ripen, it starts to get, you know, more, the sweet side of it starts to become more dominant inside that flavor profile. So right now, that's where I want to get to and see where the sugar content, you know, where it's going to be with that sugar content. Whereas when you eat them in the yellow stage, it's not really converted over, so you're really going to get more of a tomato flavor and not so much sweetness. And once it goes sweet, the flavors become more dominant with a sweeter flavor. So it kind of masks that tomato flavor a little bit. So anyway, let me try this last piece and I'll give you my opinion on it, and we'll go over the scale. Alright, so we'll give that one a go. Okay, I'm not terribly impressed with it, though I will say it's a pretty good tomato in general. but it's not going to be like my #1 choice. So here I try to illustrate to you what I'm talking about when I say sweet and tangy, and then moisture and tomato flavor and undertones. And so we're trying to draw it out in such a way so you can kind of understand what I'm talking about. So on the sweet side, we go from 0 to 50, and on the tangy or sour side, we go from 0 to 50. You got to look at it like you're going from one end this way with sweetness, and then from here you're going with the tangy flavor. So they kind of meet in the middle. So this by itself is basically from like 1 to 100. It has to make up that whole 100 flavor profile. Okay, it just makes up the whole sweet and tangy thing. But then in between these two flavors, we have all these little sub things that I look for. One of them is the moisture. Even though moisture doesn't have flavor or anything, the moisture, when the tomato is very moist, it's like a catalyst, if you will. It kind of you need that moisture in order for the flavors really to infuse and to really come together. The sweetness, the tangy, the tomato flavor. You need that moisture. If it's dry, you're not going to get that effect. It's chalky, dry, and so I put it down here as moisture, and I usually with this, I didn't write it on here. I'm going to draw up another scale, and I'm going to make it much more readable. But I usually go from 1 to 10, 1 to 10, and 1 to 10. Usually, if I'm rating it a 5 on the moisture, that means it's about 50% of the way up there. It's nice and moist. That's about where you'd want to be. That's like your sweet spot. Same thing with all the others. If it's too wet, then you know it's gushy. You know what I mean? So let's start with the sweetness. The sweetness on this was going to be very low. I'm going to put it down by I'm going to say somewhere around 20% on this, on the scale. It was very low. There was some sweetness in there, but it wasn't nothing impressive. As far as the tangy part goes, that was a little higher. That was more like 30, 35 for me. It was kind of getting up there into that higher tangy range. And when you hit the 50 range on the tangy, that's your mouth puckering. I've had tomatoes that were so tangy, your mouth, it was like eating a Jolly Rancher. It was just way too powerful. So 50% is way too much. So your sweet spot with tangy is probably like 30 to 35. So that's where you want to be. You want a little tangy. You want it to be a little bit mouth-watering, but you don't want it to be to the point where your mouth is like you just ate a Jolly Rancher type thing. Now, as far as the moisture, I'm going to go probably a 6 or a 7 on the moisture. It was pretty good as far as the moisture part of it went. It wasn't dry, it wasn't chalky, it wasn't mushy, but it was a little on a wet side. So we're probably going to call that one about 6. It was a little bit wetter than normal. So we'll call that probably somewhere around 6, I think would be a good number for that. And then the tomato flavor. The tomato flavor itself wasn't very prominent. I didn't get like a eye-popping, like wow moment when I was eating that. So I'm going to say the tomato flavor before a 1 to a 10 was actually kind of mediocre. So I'm probably going to go 3.5, 4 on that. I wasn't impressed on the flavor, but it was still pretty good. But I wasn't impressed. It wasn't like a popping experience for me. So I would say 3.5, 4 would be a fair number to judge the tomato flavor for this. And as far as the undertones, basically undertones is like any of these weird like side flavors aside from the tomato flavor itself. You get like these little weird nuances when you eat tomatoes sometimes, and they're just kind of strange. Sometimes they're earthy tones, sometimes they're taste a little like candy, or sometimes they taste a little bit like a peach, or there's like these little nuances in there. And the only way to capture that or explain that would be to separate it from the flavor itself and just try to give you a visual for the undertones of that tomato. So I separate that and put it by itself. If the tomato doesn't have any undertones, I'll just say 0 or 1 or something. That means basically nothing, really. But if it has something in there, I'd like to be able to rate that and kind of put it somewhere on this flavor chart. So that's how I'm basically rating this particular type of tomato, just as I said. And as far as like how would I rate the overall tomato, where does it fall, like my number 1 or number 10? I'm definitely not going to say it's number one. I would probably put this somewhere around, maybe like a 6, 1 being the highest, 10, if you were to go 1 to 10, I'd say 10 would probably be, the lowest, obviously. The 10 is like a tomato I would probably never really want to grow again, really, or at least not for my consumption. I grow for your seed, but I don't necessarily want to eat it. So 10 would be like bottom of the line. There's not many of those, but there are a few. This one's probably a 6. It's really, like, again, I wasn't impressed. It was just kind of on the bland side, really, and it just didn't give me a popping experience. I didn't get that, like, wow moment, And it's okay. I mean, I'll grow it again next year to see if maybe it's just the soil, or maybe I'll grow it in a different part of the yard. Maybe more sunlight will really help them flavors develop a little better. But like I say, it's a mediocre tomato. It's pretty good. It's probably a good, what could you use it for? Well, like I say in a lot of my other videos, if you're going to make tomato sauce, even though it tastes bland eating it raw and everything, once you turn that into sauce, guys, it's going to taste like sauce. You add a little salt to that, and you're good. You want to make it a little sweeter, you could put a little sugar in there. It'll actually sweeten it up and make it like you would never know. So when I give you these reviews, it's really based off of eating it raw. Now, once you turn that into tomato sauce, that's it. That's the end of it. It's going to be like any other tomato sauce. I can make you a fantastic tomato sauce with a tomato like this. But as far as eating it raw, it probably wouldn't be my first thing that I'd pick in a garden, eating it raw. That's basically what I'm referring to. Got to remember, any of these tomatoes, and I'll probably do a video on it one day. Any of these tomatoes, I could take any of these tomatoes, put it into a blender, blend them up, and then make a sauce, and then make a pizza, and then give you a pizza made with that sauce. You'd be like, man, that was the best pizza I ever ate. But yet I made it with a bunch of tomatoes that may not even taste good. So even the tomato like this that may not taste very good, and it's kind of bland on the raw side, but once you make the sauce with it and you put it on a pizza, that tastes better than any canned sauce you're going to put on there. That's a fact. That you can't compare homemade tomato sauces with the canned sauce. So even a lower grade tasting tomato like this, to me, will still make a fantastic sauce, better than anything you get out of a can. So that's my 2 cents on that particular variety of tomato. I will make seeds available for it at the end of the year. I'll try to put a link on it. When I first put these videos up, I don't build the pages right away. It takes me a couple days to build the page. So you got to give me a little bit of time. I'll leave links in the description. You'll have to just go back to the video and then link back, and then you could visit the website from there, and then you can pick up seeds for this variety if you want to. All right, so that's it. That's my tomato review for the Cereza Amarillo tomato. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care, guys.